little bit late here. Moved my stuff around. There we go. And let's switch over to not that browser and go to we're on Pixelogic this morning. I hope. Yee, what's today? Tuesday? Yeah. Alright, we're good. YouTube and streaming topics. Let's see if I missed anything big. I always expect to have something planned that I need to work on, and I never get around to it until it's too late. Well, let's see. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. So last week, I did want to touch on this for just a minute. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to pop out this chat. I'm glad I got that functionality back. And so last time, let's have a little bit more fun. Actually, I went over capes and scarves on my channel, and I wanted to bring up another thing. Well, I guess I'll just wait for my channel again, or we could go over here too. We went and did a bunch of Marvelous Designer stuff for capes and scarves. But what you could do is you could do it in ZBrush as well, and there's some fun stuff that ZBrush has for capes and scarves, I think, if I remember correctly. For example, hello, Wild Kitty 55. Thanks for showing up. One thing you can do, and one thing I forgot about, is if you go over here, grab a sphere, go into edit mode, make matcap gray, and we're not going to go across X symmetry here, but what we can do is we can hit the gizmo here, hit W, and now you can, you know, make that whatever size you want, make it a polymesh 3D, turn off blur, keep project off, go ahead and dynamesh this thing. You can go through here and you can make a cape, and we can go through here. Now, one thing you might not know is when you go through and you clip, you can see we can clip this and it'll just pull those polygons back around. You can also do trim, so hold down Control Shift and grab Trim Curve, and what that's basically going to do is slice the mesh, delete whatever's sliced, and then fill that hole, which is also another useful thing, and it also gives you a polygroup. You can do both as well. If you hold down Control Shift and go to, well, it's not technically both, but if you hold down Control Shift with Clip Curve and then go into polygroup here, you're going to see whatever gets clipped also gets a polygroup. It's still clipping, it's still pushing that geometry towards that line, but you also get a polygroup there, so that's might be kind of useful for stuff you're doing. But basically what you can do is we'll go ahead and we're going to make a cape here, and it's going to be flowing. Let's go ahead and turn off line here, and preferences, edit, line cursor to surface, and go through here, and let's clip it this way as well. Let's say our cape's going to be, and then we'll go ahead and pull it up. And we'll use H-polish here. So instead of trying to sculpt like a very thin piece of cloth and having your brush go through it, because of course if we just had this one back piece here and we're trying to sculpt through, example, if this was very thin, and you're over here and you're trying to sculpt like this, and it's going all the way through your mesh. One thing you could do is go over here to auto masking, and you could turn on, oops, let me stop shaking my desk there. You could go to backface masking here, and then if you start sculpting through, it's not going to go through. But a lot of times it's easier just to sculpt something and give you free reign for like going into standard brush here, and we're going to go into stroke and lazy mouse, crank that lazy radius up. And now you can go through here and you can start sculpting whatever kind of cape stuff you'd like to do. Hold down Shift, and this will just give you the leeway to kind of just sculpt something like a cape without having to worry about sculpting on a thin mesh. And then once you get the cape all figured out, what you can do is ZBrush and project this down, and then go ahead and give it thickness at that point. So if you go through here, you're going to see I didn't have the poly groups or anything on, so I'm going to have to go ahead and mask this part out. One thing you can do is you can hold that control, and you can see I'm going to start masking, and it's going to go over that line, so I'm going to have to go back here and clean this up. So one thing Joseph Druss did a while back was if you hold down control and then go into your depth curve, turn on depth mask, and if you pull this bottom one up, not all the way to 0, but to a small number, you can actually stop your masking curve at edges here, so you can be a little bit sloppier and still have it stop at harder edges. And just the opposite if you do the depth mask the other way. So you can save these masks out. You can see if I go into my hold down control, you're going to have I have a mask inner and mask outer, or a mask concave and a mask convex. So you can use that to your advantage. So we can go through here and we can mask this a little bit more quickly. And just recently I was doing CGMA Live QA, and kind of along those same lines. So if we go ahead and mask this here and we hit Control W, that'll go ahead and give us our poly group. You could also, if you could position your camera in a certain way, that would go, you can go down here and go to poly groups here, and you could say group front. And then if you look at this, it'll group whatever's front facing the camera here. So you see it picked up a little bit of this, but it also grouped this front piece here. So if you just wanted to group this bottom thing, you could group that, and then we can just do an auto groups here. And then we've got this bottom piece here, and then we got these 3 here. We can merge all 3 of these together. Just Control Shift, Control W here. So there's something like that, but we don't need this back group here. So anyway, we got this back one here. If you had a lot of detail on here, what you could do is duplicate this off, isolate this back piece here, go into solo mode, go ahead and delete hidden. Let's go ahead and clean those edges up. So we're going to go to masking, mask border. Let's go ahead and grow this mask a little bit, Control Tap to invert, and then we'll go to deformation, polish by features, open circle, and there we go. So now we got nice clean edges. So then now we can go in here and we could do a quick ZBrush, adapt the size down a bit. We don't need anything with groups, so we can just do ZBrush at 5K. That seems fine. Wait for it. Okay, there we go. And I'm just going to go down here. We can hit half and ZBrush and get this down as low as we want to, because what we can end up doing is if we want to give this thickness now, we can go Q mesh, all polygons, or you can extrude all polygons. If you have a lot of deep set wrinkles, it might be a better idea. Hover over the space, BZM is the modeler brush, and then extrude all polygons, one-sided poly. There we go. And then we got to go over here. We don't want to turn on double, we want to turn on flip. That's underneath your display properties. You ever flip any normals, you're going to see it's going to want to flip those things. So now we've got our mesh here. We can hit D to go into dynamic subdivision. You can kind of see what this is going to look like. So now we have a cape mesh with thickness. If it's too thick, you can go back in here with your Z modeler brush and hold down Shift. Then you could go ahead and shrink those back down. But we don't want to do all polygons. We want to do polygroup all. So now you can just take this back one and just pull that along. But again, if you did have a lot of detail back here, there's 2 things you could do. Number one, you could, as you're subdividing, let's go ahead and do a crease polygroup. It's under your crease menu, geometry crease. And we'll hit Control D to subdivide, and then we'll isolate this one and we'll do a project all. And as long as these 2 are showing, it'll go ahead and project back here. And what I'm not doing is I'm only showing this back piece here, so really I'm only projecting detail to this back side. May not be ideal because of course you're going to want detail on the front side as well, especially if you're going to have, like, you know, this thing flipping around. You want detail on the front and the back if you're going to do a 360. So I'll show you a way around that in a second. So what you can do is Control Shift subdivide, and then we're going to isolate this back piece and do project all, and then Control Shift tap to bring it back, subdivide, and then we'll do a quick project all. So now we've got our detail back, but unfortunately it's only on one side. So what we can do in this case is we can take this geometry, delete lower, isolate this back piece, do delete hidden, and now we can do an extraction or a morph diff. So this is where morph diff comes into place. And I think I read this, I think Paul Gabry had a book, a ZBrush book. They used, one thing I use all the time from that book is using Z-spheres to make shoelaces. I like that technique. The other one is this. I vaguely remember this one as well. It was something like if you have a mesh like this, you could either do an extraction or a morph diff. All a morph diff is, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, is if we go in here to morph target, then we store a morph target, and then we hit Shift S to store a screenshot of this, and we hit W, and we go ahead and move this up. You're going to see when we move this thing, we're going to see there's some thickness of the thickness of our cape that we're going to make. So it's like, okay, we like that. Go ahead and say create a difference mesh, and now up here we have a morph diff. Hit Control N to clear your canvas, and that basically just created the exact same thing on both sides. We have subdivision history, so we captured all that detail, but unfortunately we can't step back down into our we can't reconstruct or step back down in our subdivisions. However, both of these should be able to be reconstructed. We just need to add edge loops in here. So I'm going to go to this side here, and we're going to go insert multiple edge loops, and we'll go ahead and do, I think we had 4, so we can hit reconstruct subdivision twice, and now we've got our original mesh here, plus our side mesh here, plus our inside mesh here, and we have subdivision history as well. So you can just add as many edge loops as you needed along this mid plane to get your subdivisions back along the middle, and then your front and your back will also subdivide back down for your cape. So, and morph diff is kind of cool as well. So if we go here to sphere, go into edit mode, make polymesh 3D, and we can go ahead and dynamesh this, I suppose. So if you store a morph target, let's go ahead and do something. This is something else I did with the CG Master Academy last night. But it reminded me, talking about capes, is like, oh yeah, I use morph, I don't really, but I used to use morph difference a bit. It comes in handy, and another reason it comes in handy is if this is your morph target here. So we go over here and we say store morph target, and then you go back over here. Let's hit X to go across. Oh, we lost our symmetry. Let me rotate this around. There you go. X to go across X symmetry is symmetrical across the X axis. If you want to see that, turn on your floor. We're Z forward, Y up, symmetrical across the X here. And so now if we store a morph target on this shape right here, and then we hold down Control, we mask this and invert that mask, and then move this out. Alternatively, you could also hold down Control Alt, and if you wanted to unmask an area, as long as you don't have anything masked, go ahead and do that. And on this case, we can go straight back. There we go. We got a weird creature here. But probably what I'm going to do is move this out and about. So we can redynamesh this as well. Oh, we can't. Don't redynamesh because you'll lose your morph target. But any mesh changes that you've made to this mesh, so remember our original morph target, if you want to see it, you can hit switch. You can see that's what we're changing on our mesh. We can go over here, create a difference mesh, and now the difference between the original shape and the shapes where we extruded it past the morph target are now in its own mesh. So you can use that to create other different meshes. As well as, if we go back to our original object here, and again, we have our morph target stored. Of course, you can also go into your beep, boop, beep, fiber mesh, and you can go preview fiber mesh, and I want to do, let's do max fibers, let's do coverage up, and then I think that'll work. You're going to see it's just putting fibers everywhere, right? Because like usually fibers only go where things are masked. So we can go through here and then turn preview back on. It'll only go where it's masked. However, what you can do is if you don't want to do a mask, you can have it controlled by these morph targets. So go down to the very bottom here and say morph target guided. And now your fibers will only go where your morph target is. Let's go ahead and go to gravity down to 0 here. So now our fibers are following our morph targets. And actually what you probably want to do is, let's go ahead and turn off preview. Let's go ahead and hit morph target switch, and now that direction is stored in here as a morph target, and then when we hit preview and we do morph target guided, it's going to put those fibers right where that morph target's going, and it goes out just as far as that morph target went. So let's go ahead and do that's fine. Let's go ahead and hit accept. There we go. So now we have our original morph target, and then we have our fiber mesh being guided by our morph target, and now you're free to do BG, brush groom. And you can go ahead and groom these weird eyeball shapes here. There you go. And of course, there's a lot more stuff you can do with layers and morph targets that we've talked about before, but that was just a few things that recently I forgot about. Actually, let's go BG, brush groom. I want to do a spin it knot. These are just fun to play with. Anyways, question from Hackjail. Will you do another hard surface refresher course considering it's been 4 years since your mech helmet design and 4.8 has a bunch of useful stuff? Yeah, I've already done that a bunch of times. So if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to playlists, number one, probably the most useful thing for you is going to be ZBrush 4R8 What's New. That's going to be 61 videos, 4 hours. Let me go ahead and just link you guys to my playlist here. So, that's going to be all the techniques you can do. There's also the sci-fi pistol series here. That's the making of this sci-fi weapon here. And we go through ZBrush stuff and then we toss it over into Painter as well, for example. So let's see if we can find, that's the baking, UV decimate, Z repeated NanoMesh, high-res export. Color swap. Wow, we went over a bunch of stuff. Wow. Okay, so I guess this is where the actual high-res stops. So you're going to see the making of this weapon here, which is going to be, if we go to ZBrush Central. Let's see if I can track this down. I need to save this. Do I have this as a... No. Go to the gallery here. It's going to be probably way back, beta testers gallery. So for the ZBrush beta, I did this thing here. Let's wait for these to load in. And you can see kind of a very small walkthrough of the making of this thing here, this thing. So all the way through. There's a couple techniques in here kind of spelled out for you. But we basically go through and we talk about all sorts of hard surface stuff in that one, as well as, so ZBrush 4R8, hard surface, and I mean, we kind of do a bunch of hard surface stuff, you know, in my live streams as well. So if you go to like the live stream highlights from my channel and you scroll all the way down, these ones aren't ZBrush 4R8 specific, but there's a hard surface excerpt in here and we go over a ton of just hard surface examples of shadow box and creasing and Z remeshing and extraction and polish by features, and you know, and you can add that with all the new ZBrush 4R8 Boolean stuff. And we did Pickle Rick on my channel too that has some hard surface stuff. I need to go back and do a lot more live stream highlights actually. So yeah, we've done that. So let's say, and one thing I do need to finish, let me see. Let's see, delete all this stuff out of here. And let's go to load tool here. And even if we load up, for example, let's go to, and I couldn't find her original low res. I got to go track that down. I was looking on my laptop and I didn't have it, so it's got to be on this computer somewhere, I hope. If you go to this channel, which is Stream Pavlovich Workshop, so this is what we're doing right now. And if you go through here, we basically, the making of this lady right here is all on this channel. So we basically made pretty much this entire thing on this channel here. So if we wanted to, we could go ahead, and I'm really not digging. I need something for her head, and I'm not really digging this design up here at all. Yeah, so let's go ahead and delete that. Delete, and I was just doing some shape exploration here. So we'll delete all this stuff out. And let's see what we got in the subtool here. Okay, so she's pretty decked out as far as her tech suit goes, but her head is just a little bit astronaut-y. Like, I don't need to give her a full face helmet. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm just looking more for something to kind of fill out the top of her head here. So what I'm going to do, and this is, you know, if I'm just working on one piece of her and I don't want to have the overhead of a bunch of stuff I don't really care about sitting in there and a ton of subtools that I really don't care about. She's at 27 million polygons anyways. What I can do is, let's see if I can do this really quick without crashing. Let's do a merge visible. That should be okay. It's not a terrible amount of polygons for ZBrush. It's just more than I'm comfortable with. I usually try and work very low in my subtools. To keep ZBrush snappy, I like to work at my subtools. So you can have as many subtools as you want, but I try and keep them all under 5 million each. As soon as my individual subtools start getting like into the 5, 10s, 20s, and 60s of millions of polygons, it increases your file size quite a bit, and also it makes it not quite, it's a lot of polygons to push around. And generally speaking, I work with a lot of subtools. I don't work on one mesh that's an incredible amount of subtools usually. So that's just how I prefer to work here. But we'll see if it'll let me. If not, there's some stuff I can figure out as well. We can walk through this and do some other techniques to get this all down into one. Oh, let's see, let me accept that. Okay. So, you know what? I'm getting bored. Let's go ahead and do, I mean, I'm sure if I gave it enough time it would do it, but I also have Photoshop open for some reason. Let's go ahead and load her up, and I'm basically just going to extract out her head. And hit comma key to get rid of that, and we'll just load her back up. So we were under streaming, ZBrush, TechSoup female. And also on my channel, we started another person, another character here. Actually, a couple characters, 3 or 4 characters. But if we go to load tool here, we can grab the ZBrush military male. And I think last week, we were also having fun with the old man, call him Chops McGee. And of course, we also had some fun with, there's Pickle Rick, that was on my channel. And then we did, where's Smirky? There's Smirky. View, details, date modified. So this is the early stages of kind of fleshing out a hard surface model here. So we got kind of an Android type guy. If you go to this Pixelogic channel, you go to Tony Leonard, he has a lot of really fun stuff too as far as the hard surface. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Stream, Pavlovich Workshop. So I got my thing here. If you go to Pixelogic's channel and you go to their playlists, you're going to see here's everybody's playlist for their ZBrush live streams. And then Tony Leonard's in here somewhere, and he does a lot of the mech stuff as well. There's also a lot of people who do the hard surface sci-fi stuff in here, so go check them out. They do, here he goes, ZBrush for 2D line art, Tony Leonard. And we could do stuff like this. This is stuff I do at work a lot. I don't really do it at home a whole lot, but we could do some spaceships and stuff too. Those are fun. and this one here, and then if we go to subtool here, and turn all these on. So this is where, this is another kind of just block out. Let me kill this recorder. There we go. So here's another hard surface block out, just kind of getting our shapes figured out here, and then we're starting to rebuild these things into real live meshes to kind of clean them up a little bit and make them for reals. But here we are back here. So let's go ahead and let's delete all on these ones. And we might go back to Smirky today, so let's keep that one up. So again, if I want to just take her head out here, and you know, there's 27 million polygons on here I don't want to have to deal with and merge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alt tap this head here. Anything that's relevant for what I need to put something on her head, I'm going to hold down Shift and shoot it to the top. Hold down Shift, bent up arrow, shoot it to the top. Hold down Shift, up arrow, shoot it to the top, and we're just going to go through here and alt tap these. And I'm also going to go to Preferences, Edit, turn off Align Cursor to Surface, and then just shoot all these up here to the top. And I tend to work with a lot of subtools. You can group these subtools, especially if you're just concepting stuff out. I guess I don't need all that stuff. You can keep them all grouped into, you know, one individual subtool. I tend to work on subtools in chunks. It's not a huge deal. Okay, so now that those are all sitting at the top, I can just go through here and I can manually merge these down. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't care about, these are all going to have varying degrees of subdivision history, I'm going to delete lower on that first one, and I'm just going to go ahead and merge these down. It'll merge them a little bit faster. The cool thing that it does for you is when it merges two things that have subdivision history, it will go ahead and reconstruct subdivision history for you. But in cases where I don't really care about that, it just takes it a little bit longer. Okay, so now I've merged everything that's relevant for this area. I believe I'm going to hit solo mode to make sure. Yeah, that's fine. And you see these are just panel looped out, so there's holes in here. So that could be interesting when we try to resolve that. It won't, it'll be fine. But now we can go ahead and do, we can have all these selected. Let's make sure it's everything we want. Yeah, so now we can go to Subtool, delete other. And now we're just working on the head. I can do a quick mirror and weld across, excuse me, mirror and weld across the x-axis. And I think we're off to the races. So this way I can just work on this as like a, what are you going to call this? TechSoup female. TechSoup helmet. And now we just have a much smaller footprint for this when I go to save as here. You're going to see it's only 28 meg. And even past here, let's say, you know what, I don't want these caps. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these caps here. And I'll go ahead and delete hidden. And I don't need this thing going all the way down her back. So what I might be inclined to do, and we're only working with 2 million polygons here. So what I'm going to do is hold down Control Shift. And we're going to slice. Actually, let's hit Control W, make it all in polygroup here. I'm just going to slice through here. I'm going to isolate this one, and we're going to delete hidden. If you wanted to, you're going to see some of these pieces had dynamic subdivision turn on, like the eyeballs and the eyebrows here. So what I can do is go in here quickly and do a not group by normals. I want to do an auto groups under polygroups auto groups, and that way every single piece here. Let's go ahead and hit Control W again. Every single piece that's not vert weld will get its own piece, and then I'm going to go and do another quick mirror and weld across the x-axis, so they're the same on both sides. And now what I can do is I can grab these eyebrows here. Let's go ahead and go to select rectangle. So I'm going to grab the eyeballs, the eyebrows, and I guess we can grab this little cylinder in here. Anything that we need to subdivide up first. If I was smart, what I would have done is, so if these had dynamic subdivision history on them, what you can do is you can, before you merge them together, you go ahead and go to dynamic and hit apply. Or one thing I like to do is when I'm merging stuff and I want to keep those, go over here to hey Dynasty, thanks for showing up. I like to go over here to the, what am I looking for? Clean Tool Master. And there's a DynaMesh subdivisions to actual subdivisions. This will do it for all of your subtools. So for example, if we go through here and we do a group split, so now all of these are individual assets here, and they all have dynamic turned on. This one doesn't have dynamic turned on. And that's, of course, just under your geometry dynamic here. So dynamic on and off, you can do D and Shift D to turn those all on. But before we merge these together, and we want to keep all of these different subtools with nice, smooth look here. And even on this one here, we could go, you know what, those eyebrows are too creased. Let's go in here to our crease level and drop that down to 2. And then hit D and Shift D, that'll kind of knock that back. So you can even get the specific look that you're going for with your dynamic subdivisions. And now that we're all set, we can go over here and say, okay, for my dynamic subdivision to subdivision, if I want to do it with just the one I have selected, I could hit this one, or I could do all. Or actually, this one might be visible. Yeah, so this button over here does it all that's visible. This one does it all of them, I guess. That's what it kind of reads like to me. So now that those are all applied, now we can go through here and we can merge these things down. And they'll be nice and smooth. Now, of course, if I'm just using this as a proxy, like, okay, I'm not going to change anything on this head. I'm just going to, you know, model on top of this. I don't even need all these polygons. That's not a lot. It's only 1.248 million. But if you wanted to, let's go ahead and save this as helmet. And let's go ahead and DynaMesh this thing down like so. And it might be a little bit low. Let's raise that resolution just up a bit. There we go. So we have a pretty good representation of what this DynaMesh is going to look like. It went ahead and closed holes for me somewhere on the bottom. If you wanted to, you could also, what I would probably do is throw a Z-sphere in here. Yeah, we can go ahead and just kind of put in, what would you call this? Like just some filler down here, and then you can go back here with your clip curve. You can clip that back up. So that way, just a little bit cleaner in here. And then DynaMesh will read this as a new bottom. So when we DynaMesh this together, now we've got a nice closed area in here. If you also need to, you can go in here with inflate. You can just inflate this stuff up. Again, I'm not too concerned about what's going on down here. So now we have a stand-in that's only 88,000 polygons instead of 1.25 million. Again, not really necessary, since ZBrush can handle 1.25 million just fine. But in a pinch, if you had a lot of stuff going on and you just needed a proxy sitting here, that could be another alternative for you. If you want to verify that all of these interior faces are gone, you can just do Control-Shift and make sure that there's no open holes in here. Because what can sometimes happen is, depending on your DynaMesh, if it's not low enough, it won't, there will be like a little pinhole or something around here, then it'll start DynaMeshing interior faces. And of course, those are all wasted faces, so just do a really quick pass. Now to polish that up, there we go. Okay, so now we've got our head here, and another reason I might do this is I can duplicate this off now. And let's make sure we're mirror and weld on both of these across the x-axis here. So one thing I might do is I can go through here, and if I'm just going to be concepting stuff out, I'll inflate this -1. So we've got a head sitting inside of a head. And now I can go through here, and I can start just dialing in where I might want this helmet to kind of sit. So if this is our tech suit, would I want another bigger area here? And of course, you don't have to sculpt this. You can go in here and grab a Z-sphere. And then you can go to your split menu here, and we could do split mask points, and then we could go through here and rotate this out and rotate this in. And you could start with this as your base mesh. You can turn on LSim if you want to scale across local symmetry here, and this will give you a little bit more leeway if you wanted to kind of mush stuff around here. So we can undo this one here. Oops. Let's go redo. Smooth this down. Let's go to smooth stronger. You can H polish this back in. So again, this is our kind of shrunken head inside. And then this is like an insert mesh brush. And once you get your shape figured out, you don't have to necessarily be a slave to your topology. You can go through here and you can ZBrush this if you wanted to, or you can start H-polishing if you wanted to as well. We can go ahead and say, okay, some kind of look like this, or we can go in here to snake hook and do some sort of like flash thing here. And there might be some sort of comm device we might want to put on there. Let's go into our trim brush, trim dynamic. And then we can go back to our head here that we were sculpting on, and we could mask some stuff out. Now we're not going to see it. We can turn on transparency and ghost if you want to, and you can mask through, and then you can it's going to be a little bit difficult to select through here, so we can go into solo mode quickly, and then we can pop these pieces out here and then re-dynamesh. And if we want to, we can dynamesh at a slightly lower resolution and make it a little bit faster and easier to kind of pull things around. We can go into move acu, and we can pull out into corners if we want to kind of corner these out just a little bit. And then go into H-polish here. And we can go to the side, we can clip this down. And another useful feature, if you're just kind of doing shape stuff, is we can go to Alt-E. This is just an insert mesh brush thing. We can grab this. We can grab a cube here, and we'll go ahead and split mask points, and we can drop this down below everybody. We can make that subtractive, turn on live boolean, and now we can use live boolean to kind of go through here, and you can turn on polyframe if you want to see what you're doing, and you can just quickly start dialing in different shape ideas for this. And you can turn on D for dynamic subdivisions. You can start scaling these things in and out if you want to kind of start just seeing what these things would look like with those kind of pieces on here. But this kind of stuff I wouldn't do until a little bit later when I got my shapes figured out. So it's just a little bit faster to kind of work up to that point and start with probably just H-polish here. F, there we go. And the other cool thing you can do is you can just toss this back and forth into Photoshop if you want to kind of do a quick draw over or a quick paint over. And we can always just dynamesh these things. It'll go ahead and inherit the dynamesh properties of what you put it on. So again, if we go into, let's grab another sphere here, very rounded character. And we'll go ahead and split mask points. So you're going to see if we're in solo mode here, and these ones have a dynamesh resolution of 1232, and then I do a split mask points, and I go into dynamesh, I still have a dynamesh resolution on these things as 1232. So while I'm kind of doing this low res stuff, that's fine. Then I can just control drag, and I immediately have them dynameshable because my previous subtools were also dynameshable. There we go. So now we can hold down Alt and snap that to the center here. And we can just kind of start figuring stuff out, which is part of the fun stuff, is just going through here and seeing what might work. But unfortunately is also, I guess maybe not super exciting. Usually when I'm doing demo stuff, I got something to talk about. But then when I start doing this stuff, it's more like just shape exploration, which I don't know if I have a whole lot to say. So ask questions away if you got them. If not, I'm just going to be doing this. And I guess I'm also trying to think of what she could need with her tech suit. Like communications or lights or lasers or something to help her with her visual acuity, something like that. And I don't want to really cover up her eyes, although I guess we could and that's kind of what I had before, was I kind of had a, like a blast shield or a pair of goggles we could put up here, and then we could rotate these goggles around and they could come forward. And so that's another thing we could try and do, is like we can put her goggles on. And these seem a little extreme for her goggles, so we can go ahead and kind of put these into place a little bit. And we can go into H-polish here, and we can just kind of hold down Alt, and you can polish them out towards the front, and then you can also sweep them to the side if you want to. Give her a little peripheral vision maybe. There we go. So she got a little pair of goggles on. And these could be, you know, you could bridge them over the nose. We could quickly go in here and do like a cylinder or a ring, or it could be attached to her head over here, and those could kind of just slide up, which is, I think, probably where I want to go. If I want to go ahead and clip her head out of these goggles, what I'm going to do is duplicate off her head mesh, hold down Shift, shoot it to the top, take my goggles mesh, shoot it to the top, make that head mesh subtractive, merge them down, Control drag to NanoMesh, and now her head has been subtracted from her goggles here. And it also give us a new polygroup in here, so if you wanted to, you could do a group mask. You could do a polish by features. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to isolate this back piece and do a deformation polish by features. Let's do open circle. And then when you bring this back, uh-oh, did I delete hidden accidentally? Stupid. Don't delete hidden. Isolate this, polish by features, and then hold down Control Shift to bring everything else back. But if you want to, what we can probably do is, if we're just doing a simple shape here, let's go ahead and let's go to the front. And again, we'll go into masking. We already talked about this. I think it's mask inner is what I'm looking for. It'll go ahead and stop at that edge that we've created. And of course, we can make a harder edge if we go through the H polish, but we just need something quick because we're going to let polish by features do the heavy lifting for us. So go ahead and grab this front piece here, hit Control W, and now we've got a polygroup here, polygroup on the back, and this one. So now we can just show everything. And again, just do a polish by features and go ahead and get us a little more of a hard surface shape here. Looks like this NanoMesh is kind of doing some wacky stuff over here, so we can go ahead and hold down Shift to smooth, and then try another polish by features there. And again, this is just kind of doing some really quick stuff, so we're not worried about rebuilding this stuff yet or anything like that. We're just going through here and pulling stuff around. But if you wanted a smoother shape to work with, that's just one way you could do it. And again, you could always, I mean, you could re-NanoMesh this if you want to, and then you could just manually go in here with H polish and just, let's turn off the line here. And let's go ahead and raise the resolution just a tiny bit. There we go. And another thing I might be thinking about is, what kind of look am I going for? This is kind of a very 80s looking thing. Like if I wanted to make her very 80s, we could put some lines down here. Give her a little max headroom kind of look, which I'm not against. I'm not against it. But you could also go through here and we could try maybe putting some cylinders on here. So you can put these on here. If you're going to do a bunch of cylinders, what you can do is you can just hit W and Control drag this off. Let's go ahead and swap that side here. So you can Control drag a bunch of copies off. But before I do that, if I know I'm going to be doing that and I want to go ahead and split them, what I can do is do on your subtool split menu, split mask points, and now I can go through here and I can just copy these things off and scale them up and do all sorts of stuff like this. If that's more the look we want to go for. So let's go back here. We've been kind of playing with this here. And we're going to go into H polish here. Not sure what I want to do here, so let's go into Trim Dynamic. One other useful thing you could do is go to your alpha library, have some alphas off Gumroad, and those are kind of fun for shape exploration. So one thing, let's go back to the mesh we have here, and go into solo mode here, and I can just do a quick, it doesn't even need it. If you do a polish by features with no features, which is like creasing or polygroups, that'll just give you a nice kind of polished look. You can also do open circle, and that'll just kind of melt your mesh back down, which is kind of what I'm looking for. And then we can do another deflate. So we'll inflate -1. There we go. So now that we have that, we can go into our alphas here. And again, these are the Gumroad alphas that I've converted to multi-alpha brushes. So if we go over here to like our base shapes, you can see I basically converted those alphas to geometry, and now I don't have to go in here and load alphas every time. I can just very quickly go through these alphas. We're going to hit M, and we can just grab some of these base shapes here, and we can kind of pull those out and through and see if these give us any ideas, and we're going to drop that Z intensity down. So once you pull something up, you can also push back in if you want to, and that'll give you some more stuff to kind of play with here. So we can go through here and kind of just dial in. And these are base shapes, so I'm going through here and kind of seeing if there's anything that kind of catches my eye. Like so. And again, these can all just, this can just be kind of a working mesh too, so I can shoot this to the top and shoot this to the top, and then we'll merge these down. We can DynaMesh this together. If I just want to kind of work a little bit looser, it's like, okay, something like this, and we'll go back in with our clay brush here, and we'll say maybe these had some little nodules in them, and we can go back in here into our base shapes here, and we could say, cut some stuff into this. And any sort of insert mesh library. I don't think I have my general insert mesh library on this machine. I need to go check. Let's see. Brush, I think it'd be under there, so no, I don't. But if I do have stuff, I think I've got some stuff hanging around in my military folder here that's kind of oldish. So we got some Commander weapon stuff in here from my Commander file. We can see if any of this stuff plays nice for what we're trying to make here. Let's go ahead and do split mass points. And again, these are just sitting out. Let's make sure we don't have, ooh, those are heavy for an insert mesh brush. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyways, if it's just for shape stuff, we can just go ahead and DynaMesh this stuff down. I really don't care. I mean, if I am using an insert mesh library and I wanted to really use it, then obviously don't do that. But now we can just kind of clip these shapes here. And you could use trim instead of clip if you want to get rid of those little stragglers. And now we could go through here. Let's also try maybe brush. We can use snake hook. We can also use our deformers if we wanted to. And you can also use, I need to remember to use trim curve instead of clip curve when I'm doing complex shapes. But in a pinch, delete hidden close holes, mirror and weld across the x-axis, and you can use your visibility here to go ahead and get rid of that. And the reason I do mirror and weld after doing that, and you can just smooth it too, is to, the close holes isn't a mirrored operation, which usually doesn't matter too much, because it'll still make the same surface, give or take, but just to kind of play it safe, what I'll do. And we did have a helmet all made for her, but I can't find that file. And I don't know that I was a big fan of that helmet anyways. And again, we don't need anything super extraordinary for her helmet or anything. It just needs to be something I can, let's go Z intensity up on our Z standard brush here. Crank our lazy radius up so I know it's available if I need it, and then I can tap L to turn it off. And now we can just go through here. And let's see, we can pull this up over and around her nose. Again, I'm trying to leave her face open. much as I can. I have a tendency to just destroy all the faces because I'm more interested in doing the helmet stuff than I am face stuff, but I'll try something different. So we can kind of mix and match in between our pieces here. Now this is giving her kind of a Cro-Magnon look, which I don't know is really helping her all that much. We can knock her forehead back, giving her kind of a Klingon look here. So we want to keep it feminine. I mean, if that's the look you're going for and that's what you want to push, by all means. I don't know that that's what I'm going for here. So we'll go ahead and knock that back just a tad. And again, if it's not working at all, let's go in here and just get rid of it. And we can try maybe going along to the outside here. And also you have a ton of brush insert stuff you can go in here with your machine parts. These are kind of fun. You can go through here, and if you're not sure if this is what you want to use, just hit W and you can just cycle through all of these things, and you could see if there's anything in here that kind of catches your eye. Kind of like that one. You can make these thicker or thinner, put them in or put them out. And we can go ahead and do split mask points, and now those are a separate piece here. Let's go ahead and delete those. So we can have these sitting out here, and let's go ahead and rotate these back around. So to rotate them back around, there we go. Sometimes the gizmo will snap things to a previous thing. So now if you want to, we could also try doing a bend curve, so we can go in here. Now doing like a bend arc across symmetry, oh, okay, it looks like it will. You can kind of bend this around her head a little bit if you want. And then we can go ahead and DynaMesh this. And again, we're just looking at shapes here. So you can do bend curve, bend arc is another good one. I use bend arc probably the most out of anything just because I'm usually looking for like simple arc shapes or matching an arc shape here. Let's go into trim dynamic. And let's also raise this resolution just a bit. And now we can trim this down here. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. And we can go ahead and just trim these shapes down like so. And we'll go ahead and smooth this. There we go. So you've got these shapes kind of working together. And this one I'm not overly enthralled with, so I'm going to go back into BI brush insert. We're going to the model toolkit here. And let's see if we can't throw something in there. So if I pop this one here, and again, we can hit W and we can just cycle through these. If anything kind of jumps out at me, scale this down. Let's see if it maintains that. Yeah, kind of, these things are a little bit smaller, I suppose. Oh, and handles too, that might be a good one. Okay, and we've got plates and panels and stuff like that, but again, if we're just looking for shapes here, we'll go here. And we can just do a split mask points. We can DynaMesh those. I usually have just a bad habit of DynaMeshing everything right off the bat, just so I can very quickly go through here and kind of start doing this kind of stuff if I want. Just trying little things out really quickly. But of course you don't have to. If you're just doing really quick shape exploration, we can go ahead and pull this around so it matches this a little bit better. Okay, and we can also mask this back piece out. Blur that mask, hit W, Alt, reposition. We can rotate these things back and around. Go into our move brush here. And let's go into solo mode and grab our clay brush. And again, if you're working on a very thin mesh, you're going to want to make sure you go to auto masking under your brushes here. There we go. Turn on backface mask, and now you don't have to worry about it going through your mesh too much. And let's go ahead and use our inflate brush here. And then trim. Trim dynamic. There's also trim smooth border, and some of your trim brushes are pretty unique, so you can try those out as well. And let's see if we take our original ZBrush female head here. I'm going to duplicate this one off, and I'm going to try maybe, I don't know, let's get wacky. Oh, you're going to want to turn on transparency with ghosts, so it'll go all the way through. And also we have mask inner selected. That's not helping us. Let's give her like an Amish beard. Little Father Christmas look. And I know we were trying to keep her forehead feminine, and then we're going to put a beard on her. Probably not the best idea, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. Here, let's go ahead and do a split down the middle. So if we go through here and we do clip rectangle, you can hold down Alt, and now we can go on both sides here. And that'll, doesn't quite read as a beard so much here. We can have this follow her jawline out. And then we go in here and inflate, and then trim dynamic. Now they read more like horns. And this can work nicely around some previously made shapes in here. If this one's not working, we can just delete it. So really, this is the only thing we have on our original mesh here. Okay. Let's try this. Let's go grab a sphere. And we'll go ahead and do split mask points. And I guess we can, spheres are spheres, right? We're going to go, and you know what? I was going to do one side, so I'm going to hit X to go across X symmetry, or to turn off X symmetry, and then we're going to delete hidden. And then I can go in here with my clip brush, and we can clip this back, and we can scale this down. And let's scale it in a bit. I'm trying to look for is a place where no, I like the pointy stuff. Let's try over here. And let's do a quick mirror and weld, put on both sides. Now if you have LSIM turned on, it's going to mirror across its local symmetry, so turn that off. Now we can do a mirror and weld. And then we can hit X to go across X symmetry. And let's go ahead and clip this bottom here. Let's do a quick auto groups, mirror and weld, hit W, hold down Control and tap this one. That'll go ahead and make this one its own piece here. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do it like a small scale. I guess you could use array mesh for this, but I'm not even sure if this is what I like. So we'll go ahead and say, okay, this was the big one here. And again, when I do an auto groups, it's doing every little non-vert welded piece gets its own polygroup, but then it's different on both sides, so just do a quick mirror and weld. And then you can hit W, and you can Control tap any of these, and then that'll go ahead and mask it out for you. And then we can scale this one up. So we're just doing a slight progression through here. And now these are all one subtool, so I can move them around. Now if you did have these pretty close and you Dynameshed them, what could happen is, if we go in here to inflate and we Dynamesh, it could stick them together. If you don't want that to happen, just turn on the groups option under Dynamesh, and that'll keep them separate. There's also a few cool things you can do with the groups option as well. I forgot to do trim, so I got some garbage. No big deal. All right, delete hidden close holes, mirror and weld. There we go. So this kind of shape here, and if we wanted a visor to flip down, let's go ahead and H-polish this back. And you can use H-polish with Alt, and you kind of pull up to those shapes. And let's go ahead and polish these back around here. And one of the things, let's go ahead and do a quick load tool. So if I want to have a visual representation of our tech suit to make sure that, you know, whatever we're designing fits within what she originally looked like, whoa, you can load her up, and you can shoot her up here. I mean, you can have reference copies of it on your desktop, but since this is all I have available to me while I'm working, is you can just do, like, you can do like a 3/4 view over here. You can do Shift S and have that sitting there, and now we can go back. And if you don't want that sitting on your quick save memory, you can just go over here and delete all. So just make sure you don't hit Control N, and that should stay over there. Okay, so functionality I'm also not too concerned about, like if, you know, this thing needs to open or encapsulate some glass or anything like that, which might be actually kind of fun if we go into key shot. So let's think about that. If we go in here, let's go ahead and throw on, not a cylinder, a sphere, right down the middle. Split hidden, or I'm sorry, split mask points. And this one I don't want DynaMesh on, so I'm going to turn off DynaMesh. And we're going to just put in kind of a half dome here. And if you wanted to actually make it a half dome, we can go into transparency, and we can grab select lasso, and then we can do a delete hidden. And then with transparency on, and this one's selected, you can see through her face here, and you can just kind of dial this in. You can also flatten it out just a little bit, and let's turn on LSIM. I usually want that on for what we're doing. And in a pinch, you could go ahead, and if you wanted to give this thickness, you could do Cube Mesh Polygroup All and just give it thickness if you want. Or what I would probably like to do better is go here, let's not do a close hole, let's go back to our Z Modeler brush, and we'll do close convex hole. And we'll go ahead and do that. You could even do a crease polygroup and hit D for your dynamic subdivisions, and that'll give you a little bit more of a look like this. So now that she has a faceplate, here we need to make sure, you could use your deformers for this as well, but I think this will be fine. We can just kind of eyeball it. Don't worry, it saved it. And we'll go ahead and load ZBrush back up. So if ZBrush crashes while you're working, all you got to do is, I mean, in ZBrush 4R7, you had to go kind of track these things down a little bit, but in ZBrush 4R8, it should be right in your quick save. So it's going to say, let me go ahead and reset this back up here, since it doesn't remember my screen position. And we're only using a small bit of the monitor there. Okay, so you're going to see right here is all the recovered stuff that we've done. And if you ever want to clean those out, if you click on these, you're going to see it's going to go to, you can see it click go to the folder. And you can see here, but it's not going to go to the folder in Windows Explorer, which is where I want to go. So I can just quickly go to that folder here, see users public documents, ZBrush 4R8 data, oops, and quick save. So you've got a bunch of recovered stuff in here. So if we go ahead and recover what we were working on, which is our Z tool here, there might be a Z project in here, but I'm just going to grab the Z tool. That's all I care about. And then hit F to go frame this, and then make sure our tools, subtools are all in there. There we go. So we're back where we started. However, we do have a bunch of stuff in here, so we don't need these, like all these recovered files and recovered documents and tools and stuff. You can just go in here and delete those. And now, when we hit the comma key, we're just back to our quick saves. So, good times. Question, by the way, out of curiosity, do people prefer mirror and weld to the mirror command from the plugin, the one that retains the subdivision levels? Yeah, and when ZBrush crashes, go grab some coffee, do some stretches, get moving. I don't usually work with subdivision levels until I'm very late in the game. This is, again, just my personal preference, and people can answer in the comments if they'd like for what they prefer. But when if I'm doing something with subdivision history, sure, and you could do it manually too if you have two spheres over here and you do split hidden. And actually, now that I think about it, let me see, split mask points. So if we do have subdivision history here, and you did have some, let's say we did have symmetry off. Let's try that again. There we go. It's like, oh, I want these both to be the same, and they have subdivision history, and I don't want to do a mirror and weld. I mean, what you could do is you could say, okay, I could delete hidden. Delete lower, delete hidden, mirror and weld, reconstruct. But you could also do, let's see, go out of X symmetry here. Let's just go back. So you've got one here that's good and one here that's bad. You could keep the one that's good, and then you can go down here to deformation and do a smart resim under your X, a smart resim across the X-axis. And now that way you don't have to worry about your subdivision history as well. It'll still be the same subdivision history. It'll just do a smart resim across the X-axis. But do I like these? But yeah, I work with subdivisions so rarely where I'm doing anything crazy with them. Usually when I have subdivisions on my geometry, I'm almost done. I am very locked into my design. I'm not really playing around too much. But again, that's just how I work. So it doesn't really come into play that often. So this kind of looks like a monster face kind of open. It's got the teeth down here and kind of a face up here. Again, I don't hate it. I don't know that I love it, but let's see. Let's go ahead and throw a cylinder on here. And we'll go ahead and split mask points here. And we'll go ahead and crease this, turn on dynamic. And what kind of dynamic settings are on there? Those are nice. Crease level 2 subs. Okay. And if you wanted to put like, okay, I've got a lens on here, but you know what? I wish this thing was encapsulated inside of a shape like that and also blended into here. What you could do is you can take this shape here and we could duplicate it, and we can go into solo mode, hit Shift D, and on this back end here, let's go ahead and delete hidden, and then we'll go do a close holes, convex hole. And we'll go ahead and pull this back out. And now we could do a group by normals, and then we'll do a quick mirror and weld, and then we go out of solo mode here. You could do QMesh, polygroup all, and you could take these, you can hold down Shift and just push it back. And then if you wanted to, let's go ahead and hit D for dynamic subdivisions here. And then again with QMesh polygroup all, you can hold down Shift, and now you've got like a little casing for it to sit inside. And if you wanted to dynamesh it together with this one, let's raise that geometry up quite a bit here. So now we can have like a little casing for this to sit in. Now this piece right here, going in here, you're seeing it's kind of clipping through. So if you wanted to get rid of that, what you could do is you could duplicate this off and then shoot that to the top, hold down Alt and tap this one, shoot it to the top, and you can just cut this out. But let's go ahead and merge these down. So in order for these to be merged together, it's a weird sound. If I go through here and these are going to be put together, what I need to do is go ahead and apply those dynamic subdivisions. So when I merge them down, they're all nice one solid piece. I can control drag. And again, let's raise that resolution here. So now we have one piece here. And now when I cut this one out, which is should be our duplicate, hold down Shift, shoot that one to the top, hold down Shift, shoot that one to the top. We'll make this one subtractive. If you want to preview it first, what you could do is just turn on Live Boolean. And if we just look at these two, you're going to see that's what it's going to look like. If you want to, you can do a Boolean mesh. All you got to do is go down here to your, what am I looking for here? Boolean. Keep D sub de-subdiv on and make a Boolean mesh, which I guess we can just do. And oops, it should have, yeah, the U mesh should have kept my dynamic subdivisions on. Oh, I didn't actually hit the button. You're going to want to hit that button, not just look at it and explain what it does. So we've got these two showing, and we'll do, let's see. Why am I having such a hard time with this? Dynamic subdivision, turn that on. And now when you make your Boolean mesh, that's what your Boolean mesh will look like. So also let's get rid of that stupid Camtasia thing. So now with this here, we can go through, we don't need these two original pieces here. Those are just live Boolean previews. So we can go here and hit delete and delete. And now we can go to insert or append and just grab that U mesh here. And I bring everything back. This little piece here will fit nicely right inside there. Something like that. Is it possible? Yoda Mike. I need to change my cadence on my wording. Is it possible to Boolean with curve to brush to make a cut and modified in ZBrush? Yeah. So that would be if I wanted to do something like, let's do it on this thing. So for example, we've got this glass thing here, but let's say we want to make it cooler. I'm going to duplicate this off, and just to get this thing zero, I mean, we don't have to do this. We could do it with ZBrush. So let's go ahead and we'll go into solo mode here. We've got two polygroups here. Let's say I don't really like this polarized cap here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into keep groups. We'll keep the same we'll keep the same geometry, but we'll just ZBrush this for me, so it just gives me nice even geometry here. So now that we have this, we can hit Control D and we can subdivide this up, and we'll get a nice result. And let's say we want to do some Booleans on here. Actually, you know what? I don't like doing actual geometry. I like doing like crease polygroup, turning on dynamic, smooth subdiv up to 4, maybe a crease level of 3. And now we've got a nice preview of this. It just makes it so it's a lot easier to go through here and make modifications, or in the off chance you need to go through here and be like, I want to polygroup this poly loop here and then like Q mesh this in and do like design changes like this. It's a lot easier than if you actually have subdivision levels on there. So now that we have this, we can also go through here and we can do BC, brush curve. I guess we'll just do a brush curve tube, and then we can go through here and we could just draw a curve tube on here. I hate that curve tube. Let's go to my brushes here. We just made a simple one. I might need to run downstairs. Apparently my wife is doing laundry and the washer sounds like it's going crazy. But we have a tube on here. So what we can do is we can tap off here. We can do split mask points. And now if we just show these two things, we can again go into our live Boolean mode and we can make this a subtractive. And then when we push these in, give me a second here. W, fine. Let me move this thing. I can't hit Alt for some reason. So top play frame, and now you can go ahead and push these in, and that'll go ahead and you can. These are just dynamic. It's live Boolean, so you can go through here and you can move these things around wherever you want. You can pull them around and see what that's going to do for you, and you can also model on there. What I would also probably try doing in this case is if you go through here and let's say, you know what, I'm going to, let's go in our Z modeler brush. I'm going to say I want a line to pass right through here, but I don't want it just to be a simple bevel. I want to do something a little bit more creative with it and kind of play with it a little bit. So let's say we go back to our brush here and we hold down Shift when we drag it. That'll go ahead and snap it around that poly group there, and we can go in here with our brush size. We can make it bigger. Okay, I suppose that'll work. So we can cut that through here, and if we want to, we can also play with the depth while we're in here, so we can kind of move that down into the mesh a bit, like so. Or if we wanted to, we can go to Brush, Insert, like, you know, whatever you want, and make it a bike chain if you want to, and that'll cut through. But we'll go ahead and stick with the tube that we have. So now that we have this, I can tap off to get rid of that curve, and then again split mask points, and then again subtractive mesh with our live boolean, and now that's going to cut straight through there. Now if we go into solo mode, we do Shift D, we can go to this back end here, and let's go ahead and get rid of these caps. I don't really need those, so I can go into ZModeler brush, we can do delete, flat island, and delete you, and delete you. And the reason I'm doing that is it's just easier for me is hit Control W, make this all in polygroup, and then we'll polygroup this poly loop, and then we can Q mesh this polygroup here. So now, and also let's do a quick crease polygroup, and then turn on dynamic. If it ever tells you to fix your mesh, that's under geometry, mesh integrity, fix mesh. Now I should be able to hit D, go out of solo mode, our live boolean's turned on, so go out of polyframe mode, and now we have that bevel modeled in there. And you could also, we turn on polyframe here, we can go through here, we can do like a poly loop, polygroup here, and here, and here, and then you could Q mesh this stuff out. Okay, let's not do Q mesh, let's do extrude polygroup all. Man, that's doing something. Oh, you know what? Let's do Shift D. Let's see what's going on here. For some reason, when I extruded those out, it's got some weird back faces in there. But anyways, what I wanted to do on that anyway is not go so deep on that one cut. So what we're going to do is go into solo mode here. So really right here is what I was looking for. Let's go ahead and delete hidden. And then we'll do a quick Q mesh in. And then we can do maybe a poly loop here and here. Yeah, it really doesn't want to. Poly loop, poly group, let's see. Give me a second. No, seems to be doing it now. Interesting. Let's do a crease poly group, and again we'll go like, yeah, crease level 3, smooth level 4 is fine. Weird. There seems to be something a little bit weird going on with that geometry. Let's go ahead and delete that. Interesting. I wonder, oh, you know what it is? I wonder. Okay. I'm going to turn off X symmetry, and I'm going to go back to my tube here. I think when you have X symmetry on, it'll draw two over each other. So I'm going to tap off here. We'll go ahead and split mask points, and now I'm going to do a quick mirror, mirror, and weld. Let's see if that fixes it. And then do Shift D, and then again we'll go in here and we'll do a delete, flat island, U, and U, and we can always cap those later. It's not a huge deal. And oops, let's do a quick. There we go. And then this one here, Q mesh. Let me go ahead and delete. Delete a single poly here. And I keep forgetting to turn on X, so mirror, mirror, and weld. Turn on X symmetry here. And now we should be able to go to oh, you know what? It's doing something weird when I Q mesh out. Oh, it's giving it back faces to all these. Okay. Let's see. Poly loop. Maybe I do want to keep those things capped. But then if it's capped, it could do some weird edge loop selection here. I need to think about this. Extrude polygroup all. Because, yeah, if it gives me back faces, that is severely non-manifold geometry. But if we cap them, let's see, close, convex hole. Sorry, I'm just. And we'll go ahead and do a quick. Okay. Okay, whenever it wants to give you the same poly group, tap Alt, And now you don't have to worry about it trying to sneak back in another polygroup here. So mirror, mirror, and weld. So now if we do a QMesh polygroup wall, that's fine. However, if I go in here and I do a polyloop polygroup, yeah, it's going to want to go all the way through and not stop here. And I can't do, I guess I can QMesh polyloop, but it goes through that. Not ideal. Not ideal. Really weird. I need to look into that. That's a weird one. Anyway, long story short, let's see if we can just do this really quick. Okay, so now it's going all the way through. And now we can just do a QMesh polyloop, or not polyloop, let's go ahead and just QMesh polygroup all. There we go. Pop those things out, and we can just do a crease polygroup, and I guess we need to fix our mesh here. And did it say failed or yes? Okay. And then crease it, dynamic it, go in here, and then we can do our live Boolean, again, subtractive, and then, you know, whatever modeling you wanted to do and have it cut through, and you can use your move brush to kind of pull all the way through here. So, and also let's do a crease level of like 1. Soften those way out. And we can also move this up a little bit. Something like that. You can even go through here and you can pinch, so you can like skinny this up through here, so you can go thick to thin to thick if you want to, because again, it's all just live Boolean. So you got a mesh sitting here that you can go through and wiggle this thing around and cut in designs and shapes and make it thicker or thinner, depending on what look you're going for. Sorry about that. Takavach says, I have a question. Can I fix and save a costume camera position in ZBrush, for example, using Spotlight with different photos on different angles? Yeah. And just in case, well, I can walk you through it real quick. But I've also got that here. Let me shoot you down to, I'll send you a link real quick. Yoink. I thought I had it in here. Let me see, is it under live stream highlights? Boy, I need to organize this stuff better. It is all over the damn place. Okay, so one thing you can do is if you want to save your camera position, there's 2 ways to do it. Well, there's probably more than 2 ways, but 2 ways I tend to do it is you go to document, you go to ZapLink properties, and you can set up multiple angles here. So if you have something loaded in your Spotlight you want to match, so for example, texture, guess this thing here doesn't really matter. You can throw this into your Spotlight. So if this is your reference and you have reference that you're trying to match with multiple camera angles, you could go through here and you could move this thing around and you could store like custom 1, custom 2, and now when you hit custom 1 and custom 2, it'll go through here. So you can move your camera wherever you want and you can snap it back. However, what I would prefer to do, let's go clear all. Like Doug says, you can use the animation timeline. So you can go up here to the movie and then do timeline show. And now what you can do is, like, say you had different versions of this mask you wanted to match. You had like a side view here. So you can just tap here and that'll put a side view. You can go to the front view here, tap your front view. You can go to a top view here, top view. And let's say you had a 3/4 over here. And this is all within your texture Spotlight here. So now if you go between these, it's going to animate between them, but you can also use your left and right keys and that'll snap between the different views. So you can very quickly just snap between your different camera views so that you can match something within Spotlight. That's what I would do. And if you don't, if you messed up one of these, just not control drag, just drag it out. Now I get rid of them. And then again, just tap to put a new thing in there. If you're not doing any movie stuff, you can go back to movie and then click show and that'll get rid of your timeline. Cool. I'm trying to render a model I made, but nothing works and I'm stuck at this stage. Rendering should be the easy part. All you got to do, if we have live Boolean turned on, we can hit BPR. Now we're rendered. So yeah, that should be a, I'm not sure what the problem would be with the rendering part, unless you're trying to do something super fancy. Started ZBrush for a week. What is your advice for beginner? What is the best way to practice? You can go, I mean, again, I might be biased, but you can go to my YouTube channel. And you can go to playlists. I'll link this to you guys. I mean, the ZBrush documentation and also the Pixelogic website has their own Z Classroom and stuff. But if you're interested, I've also got on my YouTube channel, Intro to ZBrush Part 1. If you're just starting out, here's ZBrush Core, if you have ZBrush Core. But if you have ZBrush, go to the Intro to ZBrush Part 1 playlist, and that'll walk you through all the basics. And then I've got Intro to ZBrush Part 2 and Part 3 as well. And also, what we mentioned earlier this morning, ZBrush 4.8, what's new, is all the new stuff. So there's 61 videos in here that'll just linearly walk you through all the different features of ZBrush 4.8. So ZBrush 4, Intro to ZBrush Part 1, and then what's new in ZBrush 4.8. And once you're done with those, you should be pretty comfortable in ZBrush. And then Intro to ZBrush Part 2 and Part 3 is kind of deeper, a little more, it's intermediate, it's not advanced, it's just kind of like taking what you know and using a lot more tools to get what you want. Anthony says, so you can snap view like that to inspect changes to the model you've made? Yeah. And you can, yeah, so you can go through here and any changes, like you can go through here and you can sculpt on here. And actually this thing has no subdivision, so let's hit apply. So you can go through here and it's like, okay, I'm sculpting all this stuff I want to sculpt on my mask here. Let's do a quick mirror. So here's another reason why I might need to do a smart resim. I want to keep that, and then deformation, smart resim. And then we can hit X. There we go. So we go through here and we're sculpting. And it's like, okay, ooh, I need to snap it back to my camera view. And then you would just go back and you hit the left and right keys, and that would snap you back to whatever camera view you had saved. So you can feel free to, go in here and do whatever you need, and then snap it back to your camera view, and then hit Shift Z to turn on your reference again, your spotlight reference. Or you can use ZapLink. I usually use ZapLink if I only need one camera view, and then I use the movie here if I need multiple camera views. And then I just use my arrow keys. Babu says, I'm trying to make it look nice and all, but nothing looks appealing. It's a character bust. Yeah. I mean, we got a character bust here. We haven't gotten into rendering, but I guess what we could do, I probably need to take him a little bit farther. We're kind of running out of time today, but if we go to streaming here, we made this old man here. Let's turn off live boolean, hit F to frame him. So we got this guy here, and he's just kind of sitting in a ZBrush state. So what I would do here, let's go ahead and subdivision level 1. Let's go ahead and clean him up a little bit. And I do like the fact that he does have these polygroups here, so I can quickly go through here and make any modifications. And if you're moving stuff around and you don't want to go top down here, what you can do is, what am I looking for here? Brush, auto masking. There's a topological mask. It's got a range of 5, which is still going to pull through a little bit down here. So change that range to like 1.5. Now there is a topological brush built into ZBrush. You can go brush, move, topological. But all it's doing is putting this with a range of 3 on it. So usually if I'm just using my move brush, I'll just go in here and throw on topological, and then I can move these things independently. So now, because this topology isn't anywhere near this topology, it's kind of auto masking this bottom part out. But what you can also do is you can go to the side here, hold down Control, let's go to Mask Lasso, and we want to pull that upper lip down over so you can mask it. And we can go ahead and inflate. And we can invert that mask. We can go ahead and inflate this one. So now, we step back up through our subdivision history. So now that one's sitting over this one, and he's not really ready for prime time as far as his forms yet either. He's kind of all over the place, but go through here and fix whatever we need to, and just inflate these ends up, and then go back here with our clay brush. So again, he's not ready. He's not poly painted or anything. So he's not really ready for his rendering phase, but I guess we could get him there. Probably take me longer than 30 minutes, but we can kind of play around with him a little bit. So let's go through here with our standard brush, and we'll go ahead and delineate his upper lip a little bit, and we're going to go in here, lazy radius up a little bit, and Z-add also up a little bit here. And if we want to, we could also save another poly group if we wanted to do like an upper and lower mouth. So we can take this one here. And also you probably want to make your poly groups at the lowest subdivision level so they don't get rearranged here. So we've got his mouth and his mouth bag. So if you turn on double, you can see both of these things. And if you wanted to see the making of this guy, I think he's on my channel, or maybe Pixelogic's, I forget. I think maybe we do both. And on the live stream areas, and we go through and we sculpt this guy and then ZBrush him with groups and stuff. Make that geo a little more presentable here. What else are we looking for here? We can go in here, and we got his brow, and we got his upper and lower eyelids here. Change his nostril a little bit here. Old Damien standard. And there's the two smoothing algorithms. You can hold down shift and just smooth, or you can hold down shift and let go of smooth, or hold down shift to smooth and then let go of shift, and it'll go ahead and do more of a, it'll maintain your forms a little bit better. It'll just average the vertices over your forms as opposed to just destroying your forms. It'll hold your forms a little bit better. So, food for thought. Now this thing here, your conch and your helix and your anti-helix and all this fun stuff. We'll go ahead and tuck those back down, make this ear a little bit more presentable as well. We'll go through here and we'll cut up in here with our Damien standard brush. And this will pull inwards, and because this is ZBrushed, I'm kind of set in the design. I mean, I can make major changes and then ZBrush them again. It doesn't take that long. But usually by the time I get to having, again, subdivision history, topology, I'm not making any super duper changes here. So we can go ahead and give him a little bit more of a lobe. So I won't be doing anything like, you know, Spock or anything like that. He's pretty much going to stay as he is. I'm just making relatively minor adjustments to his overall mesh. Go in here with our clay brush here, and let's do an inflate. And maybe a move. And clay brush, and again, because I have subdivision history, I can always go back down. If your mesh is too hard to work with at a higher subdivision, just drop it down. If your mesh is too hard to work with as a DynaMesh, and you're having to constantly like just struggle against your mesh, probably you're working at a slightly too high of a resolution on your DynaMesh. And usually when I'm doing DynaMesh stuff, I work it as low as I possibly can, and then raise it only as needed. So, what else? Let's see. Missing some comments here. Oops, keeps knocking me to the bottom here. Ven City says, "Hello, Mike. Any tips on how to price our freelance job?" That's kind of up to like your skill level and what you're working on, but I would say make sure you're getting paid enough to cover the hours you put in, for sure. Just kind of price out like what you think you should be making hourly and how long the job's going to take, and that's usually where I start. Yeah, I need to get back on some more content stuff to put out. Yeah, that's a good point. So, man, I can't read anybody's names. Predajis16 says use, instead of using matte cap. So what can happen when you use a matte cap and you go to BPR, it's like it'll capture your shadow direction, but it's going to bake in the lighting. So probably if you're doing ZBrush stuff, say if you wanted to go in here to our skin shader 4, and you know what, let's go ahead and poly paint this guy a little bit. So we'll go ahead and just put in a color fill object, and then we can go in here with maybe RGB, and we'll, whoa, RGB intensity down. There we go. So we can kind of paint in. The blood will kind of pool in this area, and then we'll go in here to the golden tones, and we'll say, we'll golden this up a little bit, and then we'll go in here to the blue tones, and we'll say, cool this down a little bit. And then we'll go into a little bit of purple and a little bit of green. And that's kind of our base coat for our poly paint here. And of course you can get more and more fancy if you want to go in here. You know what? This is gonna be a blast from the past. Let's see. Way back when, let me see. I did something here, I think, ZBrush 4, R2, and R3. Whew. So I did this guy, this little cowboy guy for ZBrush E3D ZBrush brush R4, and I kind of just go through. I think I show the making of painting this guy, but if we go to my ArtStation, go down here to the E3D section, and basically this guy's just all poly painted and rendered out in ZBrush. So we just go here. You know, there's lots of really cool, fun rendering and stuff you can do in ZBrush. I go over it in Intro to ZBrush Part 3, where how you can like render in layers or render passes and stuff like that. So when you hit BPR, you're gonna get your shadows, and you can also go in and do your like AO and stuff. Let's see if we go into rendering here. What am I looking for? A render. So once we hit BPR, you can go to render passes, and now you have your shaded depth shadow. We don't have ambient occlusion, but you can certainly turn that on under your render properties. We can go into render properties, ambient occlusion, and also in here you can turn on wax preview if you want to give this guy a little bit more of a waxy look. You can do that. Now this is going to be under the material setting, so we're going to go into wax modifiers and crank that strength up. So now he's getting kind of a little waxy look. So if we turn everything else back on, let's go ahead and turn his eyebrows off. So now he's kind of getting a soft waxy look here, and you can also bake in the subsurface scattering if you want to, and you can also tone down those shadows just a little bit. You can blur them out just a tiny bit. So we can go into shadows here. We have shadows turned on, so now we can go to our shadow properties, and we can say we can blur them out, or we can drop the resolution, or both. And then with our AO turned on, we can go in here and we can change like the blur of that down and then crank the resolution up. So now when we do a BPR pass, we're getting more of that look. And you can also roll over these and see the result you're getting. And of course you can take these passes into Photoshop just by clicking on them. Then you can save them and load them into Photoshop, or you can go into your Z plugin here, and we can go to ZBrush to Photoshop, and you can just send it over to Photoshop. Just click that here. Sure, send it to Photoshop. So we'll look at that. Sorry, of course, about high-res creation, game res process. You use 3D Studio Max, and you use Maya. Should you learn Maya? What can you interested in game res model making? Yeah, like everybody's saying, Max is fine. I just use Maya because every project I've ever worked on in my entire career has had a Maya backbone as far as production pipeline and usually animation. So here it is, everything thrown into Photoshop. So now you can go through here and dial in, just kind of lay over all these different pieces here. Of course, if you want to, you can also just do that manually with, what are we looking here? Ooh, that shaded model's dark. So let's go back to our lighting here. So again, lighting, poly painting, and texturing is all put together. But of course, you can go in here to your light. We can move this around so now it should update the lighting here, and let's crank that intensity up to 1. There you go. So now the shadow's going to fall on the other side. You can put in multiple lights if you want to. You can turn this one on. You can also make it a rim light if you want to. So you can just take this light here and you can tap it once, and that'll send it around to the back. And you can change your material properties, obviously. So you go to material properties and change the specular and specular curve. And you can make it more blinn or more fong. Bring that back out a little softer here. So you can kind of dial in exactly what you're going for here. But probably that needs to be back down here. So anyway, but yeah, you can use max. Max is fine. In fact, when we're doing high res stuff, nobody really, at my company anyways, nobody really cares what you use for your high res stuff. But as far as our backbone into engine, and when we're working on third-party stuff, almost always it goes through, I think one exception, everything's gone through Maya. But yeah, for high-res stuff and just modeling, nobody cares. You can use whatever you want. And when I say like, oh, we use Maya, what I mean is we're using Maya for like referencing rigs into scenes and doing our organization and tagging nodes and exports. That's what I mean when I say go through Maya. But for modeling, it doesn't matter. Basically what everybody's saying. And yeah, if you're hopping between packages, it's the FBX format, generally speaking. Cool. Yeah, we got about 15 minutes here. Mike, can you take a crack at that pet toy design I showed you? I don't remember that. I'd have to go back through and look. See if I have that. Pet toy design. Remind me. Can we use ZBrush for making specular map and roughness map, etc. too? You can. It won't be like real time, like if we were in Painter and you could paint a spec map and it would change the material properties. But if you wanted to make this guy a spec map, what we can do is we can just go in here and we can say fill him with a dark color, and then you can go through here and it's like, okay, I know I want him to be more specular in his T-zone or on his lips, or you can also do a subsurface scattering map manually where it's like I want him to be more subsurfacey in basically these same areas, you know, maybe a little more around his eyeballs, and then a little less. You can hit C, a little less through here. So you can manually go through here and paint these maps and then export these maps. I assume he has UVs. Let's take a look. If he doesn't, we can make them real quick. So if we go over here to UV map, texture map, create, yeah, I guess he doesn't have UVs. So what we can do, we can make some UVs real quick. Let's go ahead and delete him. And so if we go and we work on clone, it'll automatically shoot him down to his lowest subdivision. But we can just do that manually as well. And then we can go over here towards the plugin and we can say, and I guess we don't need this movie thing anymore. Movie, don't show. And we can go to UV master. We have it is symmetrical mesh. If you choose use polygroups, it will, there's some polygroups we want to use, but there's some polygroups we don't. So what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to work on clone first, and then I'm going to only keep some of these polygroups here. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, and we're going to say I want this ear to maintain their polygroups. I want this in eyeball and this nostril to maintain their polygroups, and of course this mouth bag to maintain its polygroups, but not the lips necessarily. The rest of this mesh, it can keep its polygroup, but you know what, now that I think about it, I want to go ahead, you could even say, you know what, I want this thing. So when you go in here to your select, not slice, select lasso here, you can go ahead and punch these things down, and then we can do a quick auto groups here. And you know what, let's take this one as well. It's kind of a roundabout way to do this, but it'll be fun. So now what we can do is we can make these all one polygroup here, and both of these one polygroup. Let's make it a little more obvious. And we'll go back here to select rectangle. There we go. So I've got the front of our head here, and then the back. And if you also wanted to, let's do a quick, you know what? We don't want to break our, let's grab these. There we go. And then on the back here, what we can do is we can also just start painting. Hold down Alt to start painting, and then just tap Alt, and it'll go ahead and make a new polygroup here. Then we can grab this one. And you don't even have to do an auto groups. You can just go through here, and you can just get rid of this one here. And then you can make these both of the same one here. So we got all our polygroups dialed in for our mesh. So now I can keep polygroups on. We can hit unwrap. And I'll show you how you could do much of what we just did with control painting, but now we can do flatten. And you can see where it's kind of divided our mesh, so we can do unflatten here, and we could do check seams. Put a seam right down the middle of our face, which I'm not thrilled about. So let's go ahead and say I want to keep my polygroups here, but what I want to do is you enable control painting. I want to protect, whoops, go into our standard brush here, go to RGB, crank our intensity up to 100. So we want to enable control painting here. So I want to go ahead and protect everything down the middle of his face. And it can try and put seams somewhere else. And you can also tell it where to attract seams, which I guess we could do. Let's attract some seams where I really don't care where they go. So we'll go ahead and say you can put seams here. Let's see how that handles it. So let's go ahead and do another unwrap and then flatten. There we go. So now we don't have a seam right down the middle of his face, and it went ahead and protected all that stuff. So if we do flatten here, these are the UVs we're going to get. You can change any of these UVs on the fly if you want to. You can hit W and hold down Control and tap, turn off X symmetry. You can move these things around. You can scale them down if you know that there's areas where you're not going to need a whole lot of resolution. So feel free to move and rotate and scale, and you could even go in here to your mask border. You can mask your borders out and then invert that, or you can invert that and smooth the ends out, or you can keep it that way, and you can go through here and you can do polish or smooth to kind of relax your UVs in here. It's up to you. We can unflatten, and now we can say copy these UVs. Let's go ahead and turn off check seams, and we go back to our original mesh here, and we can paste our UVs. So now this guy has UVs. So if we go down here and we do our texture, we can do new from poly paint, and that'll go ahead and bake your poly paint to your guy. Or if you were, say, going through here, go into solo mode here, RGB. Do I not have that set up? Oh, we have texture turned on. Turn off. There we go. So if you're going through here manually and just painting out masks, for places like, so for scattering or whatever you wanted to do. You could also bake these out, so then you can go down here and say new from poly paint, and now you've got a mask for whatever you were painting for any material properties you wanted to do. Like I said before, it's not going to be real time. You're not going to get real time feedback like if you're in Painter painting specular maps or metallicity maps or roughness maps or transmission maps. If you wanted to watch more on that, I got a ton of those types of videos on my YouTube channel. Here, one more time. Go to my playlist, and there's a ton of just getting stuff in, and I think there's a Substance Painter Quick Start that might be a little bit dated, but in the live stream highlights, there's a lot of Painter stuff in here. My live stream full episodes, you can check those out, and we do quite a bit of that. Cool. Any composing coming to my channel? Like music composing? Probably not. I'm not too musically inclined, unfortunately. Compositing, Yeah, I mean, we go over a little bit on Intro to ZBrush Part 3. You know what, actually, let me look at that. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you. Recording exported. Oh, Intro ZBrush series. ZBrush Intro, Part 3 exported. So I think in Part 2 and Part 3, even in, there's some bonus videos in here. This one I use KeyShot for, but it's kind of the same principle of just getting your, so here's the model here, and then going through here and just rendering out layers, and then taking it into Photoshop and just kind of doing some fancy footwork to kind of get the final image. In Intro to ZBrush Part 3 in particular, we go through a bunch of that stuff. Photoshop compositing. Whoops. Go through here, and we just manually go through and just dial in some settings and some fill lights and stuff like that to kind of composite your image together and save out your masks and all that kind of stuff, and hue and saturation adjustments. You can also do image-based lighting or use HDR images in ZBrush using light caps, which is kind of interesting. Image-based lighting. For example, this one here, you can go through here and you can go in ZBrush, you can use image-based lighting. Basically using light caps to capture from your image and set up a light rig within ZBrush, which is kind of cool. Or you can just go into any number of renders and that'll do it for you as well. So a little bit of compositing, but not a whole lot on my channel in particular. I can add that to my list of things to do. There's a lot of things I need to do on my channel. It had spheres and cones in the shape of jacks. I really don't remember at all. I'd have to go back through my emails here. Cool. And like Predragpesic16 says, the more 3D apps you're using, easy to pick up and learn. And I'm constantly learning new 3D packages. In fact, I've probably forgotten more 3D packages than I know at this point. I used Modo quite a bit back when we were working on Doom, but I haven't touched it since then. So now I'm kind of like out of practice with that kind of stuff. And also like little ancillary or kind of third-party packages like RapX, Marvelous Designer, you know, stuff I use occasionally, but not all the time. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff. We got some cool stuff with Houdini coming up, which it'll be, which should be really fun. Cool. Pred, that'll work. Yeah, I'm having a tough time with names today. All right, we got exactly 5 minutes left. So, boy, I don't even know where we left off. Let's see. So, Chops McGee, he's kind of going. He's looking okay for the 5 minutes we worked on him. So I'm gonna go ahead and save him. Chops McGee Z-remeshed, and he's got UVs now, which is nice. So where he left off with this poor thing. Let's see, hold on, shift, turn everything else back on, and I think this was just for demo purposes. We'll go ahead and delete those two here. And I don't know, we're kind of having fun with this one, so we'll see how that goes. And it looks like I need to make this a little bit wider, and this a little bit wider, and this a little bit wider. Oh, and we also, looks like we have our brush settings still loaded up here. Topological. Another thing you can do, just in case you didn't know, is you can hit W, and then go ahead and reset this. Let's go ahead and turn off X. We'll go ahead and reset this right in the middle. You can turn on this multiple subtool move thing here. So now when you hold down Control Shift, you can Control Shift click, and that'll turn everything off. And then you can like say, I want to move this subtool here, and this subtool here, and this subtool here all at the same time. And now you can just go through and move just those subtools. Or you can Control Shift tap and invert those, and now you can move all the other subtools. Or you can Control Shift drag and get rid of that selection. So you can Control Shift tap, and it's like, okay, I want to move this piece and this piece just by itself. And they're two separate subtools, but now you can move them independently, or you can hold down Alt and hit X, and then you can move them wherever you'd like. So you can move, scale, and rotate these things all at once without having to go through and merge and do any of that stuff. You can just go through and move those subtools independently, and then Control Shift drag to get rid of that selection. And then it's like, okay, I want to take these two here, We kind of move these out all at once. And now, of course, this middle piece here is a full piece here. So moving this out is going to look a little bit weird. But I guess I move these two however you want. Or you can go in here and rotate them. Whatever you want to do, then get rid of that selection and then turn that back off. And then you're back where you started and hold on Alt and just tap these things here. So that's a fun one. I use that all the time, especially when things get really complex and you're doing mechanical stuff, for instance. So we got this one. Let's go ahead and save this one as streaming TechSoup female, and we're going to call that her helmet. So we'll have that going, I suppose. And then nothing else loaded in here. I think we had a crash. I just loaded up the last Z tool. All right, guys. Hey, Siegel, thanks for showing up. Just in time for me to log off. Thanks, everybody. That was a fun morning. And I don't think I'm going to be next Tuesday. I'm not going to be on this channel. This Thursday, I'll be on my channel. Then there's Thanksgiving stuff coming up this week, and I think I'm going to be out of town next Tuesday. So, or at least maybe not out of town. There's something on my calendar that's going to make it difficult for me. I think I'm going to be downtown. So I won't be able to make this next Tuesday's channel. But check out my channel on Thursday, Pavpixel, Twitch TV /PavMike, and you can look at that. So again, thanks everybody, and I'll see y'all next time I'm streaming.